stream should be transferred over. If you are on YouTube, let us know in the chat that you can hear us. Thank you. Yeah, okay. So just quick order of business at the beginning. We made a commitment to deprecating the 2.0 p.m. repo by mid-November. So the issues are now going to be tracked there. I still need to do some cleanup on where notes and things live. But the merge stuff is moved over there, and consensus layer stuff is now moved over there, so we can kind of track all of our breakout calls and things in one place. Nothing crazy there. And if you're not muted and not speaking, please mute. Okay, so Kintsugi, this was an effort that kind of spun out from the Amphora interop with the plan to finish. There were many minor spec changes that came out of discussions at the Amphora in-person interop, and we did a sprint to finish those spec changes, and now the plan after that was to hit it hard in November with the target of a persistent testnet, definitely approaching more production grade quality engineering at the end of this month. The end of this month means probably something more like December 1st or 2nd for the launch of that testnet, and Perry is going to be helping us with that and helping us weekly when we do get some people hitting some of those first milestones, doing a weekly Devnet build. So we have released this doc, Kintsugi. Thank you, Tim, for the excellent name here. Here is the doc. I'm sure it looks like a lot of people have already seen this. And at the bottom, we note that both the consensus layer call and the all core devs call, which I might call the execution layer call, will the first 30 to 45 minutes of each call be dedicated to more of a cross-layer office hours stand-up discussion, just to make sure we're touching base and identifying any issues and sharing information along the way. So that's what we're going to do this morning. I invite both folks from the execution layer to this call, and I invite folks from the consensus layer to the all core devs call on the opposite week. We will, let's see, I think we'll do like a little bit of a quick stand-up, kind of like we did in Amphora. Doesn't have to be too deep, but, and I know not everyone has begun, but just a quick round. If you are on the call and you're on a client team and there's any update with respect to Kintsugi, we'll kind of run through that, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussion. I know there has been a lot of discussion on Discord already, and I will note that we do expect, especially in this first week, for some minor changes to land in the specs, and we'll make it abundantly clear that that is happening. And through the month, we expect less and less of that, although there's always a chance that there is a minor change between a DevNet build weekly. Any questions about anything at a high level, what we're kind of planning to do this next month, or how things may proceed? Okay, cool. So let's do a quick round on where people are out on Kintsugi. I know it's just been out for a couple days, but if you have opened it up and begun, give us a quick update.
I can start.
Excellent.
So yeah, for guests, we started, or I started implementing the spec. It was finished, and then the API changed a bit again. So I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to change the PR to reflect the correct spec today. And I also updated the test vectors. Again, they are not up to the newest spec, but like only the fog trace updated method changed a bit in the newest version. So it's a good starting point for anyone looking into implementing this, just to make sure that like you have the basic format right. I'm not sure if the format is correct anyway, so it would be cool to double check with other client teams. That's it.
Great. And I will note that the engine API spec changed out from under your feet because of the changes you requested. Okay. Next.
So in Nethermind, we have just started implementation of the spec. So I hope we will deliver it very, very soon. Yeah, that is short update from Nethermind.
For Teku, we a little caught on the back foot. We were merging all the Amphora stuff over to master and getting that production ready. And then somebody dropped a new release and said we're doing test nets. So we're going to try and do both and get that all into master and be ready for the first DevNet, the updated spec on master.
Excellent.
Toggled off, obviously. So it's good code, not as hacky as Amphora was. But obviously, you know,
And I
not what I'd
apologize.
exactly call production ready.
Yeah, I apologize for any failures in communication here. I think those at the event were very aware, and maybe we had mentioned on some calls that this was the plan, but it did not make it very clear. So I apologize if we caught anyone off guard on there.
No, it's not a problem. I think it's the right way to go for us anyway. To be honest, even if I was more aware of it, so it's all good.
Yeah, I can go next. So for Prism, we are, short and sweet. We're aligning the consensus spec. We are aligning to the new API calls. So hopefully we'll get those done soon.
Yeah, same for Lighthouse. We just started the work on Kintsugi. We have a PR open that documents our progress. So it's PR 2768. Still early days for us. We're not at M1 yet, but yeah, not much to report apart from the fact that Paul's been working on a production-ready optimistic sync implementation for Lighthouse. He's going to document his findings as usual, and he'll be sharing that with you all shortly. He's also looking at how to structure the big node and validator client API for giving, I guess, early notice of block proposals. Same here, he'll update everyone on his progress.
Yeah, that's probably one of the big things to address is updating the standard APIs, particularly the ones the validators need. So I did see that ticket in the Lighthouse repo. That's quite useful. I need to digest it a little better and get to that point, but getting some of that stuff into the actual standard API repo with proposals of what things look like would be really good at some point.
Yeah, I think that's his plan. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so we started to work on tests, and most of the tests for merge is passing, but for Grandina we are missing the integration with the execution layer code. But I think yeah, this will be done in a week or two.
So which team are you in?
Thank you. And any other updates?
Well, for Nimbus, we are always keeping track of the spec, and for Kintsugi specifically, we have a call in 2 hours for monthly planning, so this will be high priority.
Lodestar, we created the issue today. Hopefully, I'll put some resources and work on it next week.
Excellent. Cool. Okay.
If that's off the clients, I would like to talk quickly about something that's happening in Geth. So we haven't yet merged the changes from Amphora to master, and so we also cannot, like, I want to get those changes in first and then get the Kintsugi changes in second, And then we also need to update, we also don't have the reverse header sync in master. So we have like 3 open PRs that need to be merged. And until then, we cannot have a working test net from our side. So there's still, even though like I've implemented the spec, there are still some dependencies because it's not, it doesn't have any syncing in it yet. So for the interop, we hacked something together, but we don't want to do this. And so yeah, it might take another week for us to create a client that can actually sync.
Makes sense. And that's one of the things I want to talk about was when we have at least, I think, one client on each side of the aisle, we do want to begin to do these weekly DevNet builds. But my current intuition is that is not 1 week from now, but maybe 2 weeks from now on that Thursday. Does that seem reasonable? Is anybody eager and thinks that we might be doing a DevNet build in 1 week? Okay, cool. So we will skip the 11th and target the 18th, and plan on doing the 18th and the 25th. We'll do a DevNet build and bring in more clients as are ready. And then that following week, assuming things are going well, target that persistent testnet. Are there other, I know it's early, I know people have just begun to look at the spec changes. There has been some chatter on Discord. Are there things that people would like to discuss synchronously? Are there questions with respect to anything in specs? Just open time for discussion.
Yeah, I guess I had a question regarding how is everyone feeling about testing optimistic sync? Because like testing in production doesn't sound all that nice, right? But this is not something you can also spec test. So I think like using merge mock, the tool that Portal and Light Client write would be nice. So I just want to ask, what's the progress on that?
So another tool at our disposal is definitely Hive. And there are some members of this call and others that are looking into it. But yeah, Light Client, do you want to give us an update on MergeMock?
Yeah, I'm currently implementing the latest engine API spec on MergeMock. That's should be done in the next day or two. And then like the longer term goal of the next week or two is to have a way of accepting like test vectors that are statically generated into MergeMock so that we can all kind of run the same sorts of tests rather than what it's doing now, which is just sort of generating random valid message calls. And then you should be able to just use that to test either your execution client or your consensus client.
Awesome.
Does anyone want to give an update on Hive? There were some discussions at the in-person event on strategy here. I know that I don't think we've dug into those strategies, but do you want to discuss what the high-level plans are here?
I can give a summary of where we're currently at with Hive. There's this one PR open that introduces Ethereum 2 clients into Hive. I think this is just a prerequisite before we can look at the merge at all. We need some kind of base to introduce Ethereum 2, or these beacon clients, I should say, the consensus layer. Then after that, and if that's stable, then we can replicate that, but then instead of running the phase 0 or Altair fork, we can run the merge fork. And with the merge, we change this connection to the execution layer. So there's this slight change in configuration, but otherwise it's the same setup, and it does spin up the whole thing. So boot nodes, Ethereum 1 and Ethereum 2. And then after that, once we have this general testnet-like simulator working, we should look at the the next type of test where it tries to do something more interesting, something less common.
Although testing Hive, etc., is not as exciting as some of the other stuff. I do think that testing could be potentially the long tail here. So if someone on your team wants to dig in, that'd be very, very valuable.
So I also started fuzzing. So I created a fuzzer for the execution layer engines, and I started fuzzing Geth against Bisu, and found some differences already. And so yeah, I'm going to also continue working on that next to Hive. And I also have a tool for sending fast transactions to the actual test nets. So once the test nets go up, we can create fast transactions on them.
Got it. And there are consensus layer vectors as usual, but there's probably some spots will shore up in the next couple of weeks, and we get an iterative testing release out. And the plan, I'm sure, is to integrate merge builds into the Beacon Fuzz infrastructure when the time comes. And then on the execution layer side, there are certainly a series of vectors we do need to create around this random opcode and some of the other things. So that, and then integrating into the normal fuzzing infrastructure. What's the normal path on getting the execution layer EVM style vectors written?
So we have a test team,
Right.
the Ethereum test team, that is working on the EVM test vectors. So we can just ask them to create some for these new opcodes. The problem is that the infrastructure is very much based on Ethash and the current way it works, and so I think they need to put a lot of time into making sure that testing works post merge.
Okay.
How are you expecting that clients should import these vectors? Because like today, you're kind of using this import subcommand that's just taking in RLP blocks. But after the merge, if you want to test things from the consensus layer as well, and you need to have some sort of directives from the engine API, is that something that would also be supported by the import subcommand?
I'm not sure.
Does the import subcommand actually need anything from the consensus layer, or essentially just these inner blocks, these payloads?
I guess I'm not sure how it would deal with a fork, because like if I give it two chains that are the same length, it doesn't really know anything about.
Okay,
like, what's the canonical head?
I didn't know if those test vectors dealt with a block tree rather than just a chain, but they do.
Yeah, I think that the blockchain test just supports sending like whatever RLP blocks, and you can submit a tree if you want.
Okay.
But I don't think that those are the important ones. I think the important ones, like for testing the random opcode, is just the general state tests, and those are just basically just a transaction, and this can be applied pretty easily.
And similarly, there's going to be some that we probably want to see rejection due to non-zero values in headers and things, but those should be the pretty standard as well, right, Marius?
Yes. So as long as you have like I don't know, you give it a block that is invalid, then it should be rejected. This is pretty easy, but yeah, I'm not sure if we can handle
If you
it.
give a valid block, will the RPC update without the engine command? Because I'm like wondering if Hive, if I'm asking, is this block in the canonical chain, meaning it was like accepted and valid, it may not return because it may just be waiting around for like fork choice updated.
So you can set up if you set up Hive with a chain that is valid, or like it doesn't even need to be valid, then you can query for that chain. But right now you cannot really add a block to the chain. Well, you could maybe, but like this is something that needs, like, there needs to be some more stuff implemented there to enable it in the tests.
I think at a bare minimum, maybe in the next few days, we can create a spreadsheet with the vectors that we do want to get in, like the standard kind of pass-fail vectors, and then figure out how to integrate those soon.
I also started when I worked on getting everything merged to master. I already started a document with like things that I think are dangerous and that we should test for. And I'm going to share this document in the interrupt channel. And so if anything, like it's just a general collection of everything that I think is going to be, it's difficult or something that we should test for. And if you have anything to add to that, then just please add it. And in the end, we can go through all of them and like make test cases out of this, or check that this is something that cannot happen in the code. Yeah.
Are we discussing only standalone EL client testing or everything, like including Hive and complex scenarios within communication between the layers as well? I mean, those those like test cases that you have just mentioned, are there for standalone testing, or should the CL also be involved?
Right now, it was just a brain dump during implementation, so that those are the things that I thought about during implementation that could maybe go wrong, and so I'm not like, it probably needs some stuff on the consensus layer as well. I'm not sure.
I mean, my gut is to test things separately on layers where possible and where it makes sense. So, for example, like to reject a block with uncles, that's an execution layer test. Whereas certainly integration style testing and more complex scenarios we want to hoist into Hive and other places.
Right, but rejecting this kind of block should be done through execute payload, right? It should not be in general. The execute payload triggers a different code branch than the usual processing in the proof fork network.
Right, but whether it's via execute payload or essentially if you're importing a block in your post merge functionality, so if some conditional is hit, then that should be validated as such, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it needs to be discussed how to design this kind of tests. Will EL clients support this kind of flag that they are operating in the proof of stake environment, and then every import block will mean that it happens adhering the rules in the EIP 3675 or not. Yeah. Probably it's easier for doing it that way. Then we can keep the implementation of the EIP the tests, testing that test the implementation of the AP separately from the engine API, which would be good, I guess.
I agree.
I mean, one way that this kind of conformance testing is done is through a mocking setup, because we'll end up with very, very many combinations of different clients, right? I guess one potential test setup is that we have like a dedicated tester, because everything is through APIs, and we should be able to validate that a client gives correct responses and does the right thing in response to being prodded the right way through an API.
Yeah, I agree. Which maybe merge mock is angling in that direction to be such a tool.
Yeah, right. And that would sit like right in the middle of the star of testing. Instead of making a mesh of testing, we make a star of testing with this thing in the middle.
Right. There's probably still value on some sort of nightly or weekly build actually test literal client combinations, with our nice n squared star, or mesh, not star.
Yeah, but this middle tool is very helpful during development.
Agreed very much. Other testing stuff people want to discuss? We are at the half hour. I'm happy to, we can take this as long as we want. Other Kintsugi related items we'd like to discuss today? Okay. The merge interop channel on Discord is, I believe, where a lot of the pretty active discussion around the finer details here will happen. So make sure you keep an eye on that one. A week from tomorrow, the Alcor Dev call will also have the opening be related to dedicated to Kintsugi. If it ends up being valuable and we want to schedule, a call in between those calls, maybe something like super informal, just hop in the chat on Discord. We can do so. I guess just holler if you're hitting a wall or have some things we want to discuss, and we can maybe hop in on Tuesday or something. But for now, we'll plan on at least doing the weekly. Anything else related to Kintsugi before we move on?
Yes, quick note. There was this PR merge this morning with update to fork just updated. Will this be canonical for Kintsugi right now, or how do we approach this?
Yes, I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I think especially in this first week, we might see some minor updates based on discussions make it in, and we will make that very clear, especially because we don't have the first DevNet isn't until 2 weeks from now. We do expect maybe between now and Tuesday, Wednesday to see a couple of minor iterations. We'll make that very clear. And as we're approaching DevNets, make sure testing is in line with the releases and that the releases are very, very well known.
Can we have at least some internal version number or something, so that we know that if someone just updated their code and then something new comes up, then that they need to update again?
So essentially version the Kintsugi meta spec?
Yes, because it was I implemented everything 2 days ago, and then the payload ID changed from 8-bit to 32-bit to byte, and I didn't actually see that, and now the project updated, so I need to update my code twice.
To be fair, you implemented before this was even released. So the 32 byte was always in the original release, but yes, we're gonna try to do this not a lot. I mean, we're generally in like a reasonable place. I think a lot of the decisions were made at the Amphora interop, and I don't expect big things to be changed. But yes, we'll try to not pull the rug out from under your feet and to make it very, very clear what's going on here. And we can call what is the update that will likely come out tomorrow, Kintsugi v2, to make it better for internal versioning.
So are you saying that we're going to want to have another release of the engine API with this PR, or are you wanting to wait a week to get more feedback?
I don't expect a lot of changes to come, and so I do want to just kind of get them out pretty quickly.
Okay, so clients right now should be like getting ready to do it with the new PR and not with the hashing of the payload.
Correct.
Okay.
Again, I'd like to, anything that we do want to get changed, do it very quickly so that we can quickly conform on something and not worry about version changes anymore.
Well, for sync in particular, we discussed an addition of block export so that the beacon blocks by range request can be implemented in the consensus layer.
Right.
That's something that would be nice to get in that case.
I agree. I see that as at least barring the beacon blocks by range, not having execution payloads. If that changing it up, the deduplication across layers is a bit more additive. So I would like to open up that conversation, but I think we can get the core done without that.
Right, there is definitely things to discuss, because it could be a couple of approaches that could work.
Yeah, we can prioritize trying to, because we did take notes about this conversation in, my cat is scratching me. Sorry.
Get a dog.
Apologize, they unplugged my headphones as well. We did take notes on some design options with respect to deduplication of execution payloads across the layers and calls to get them back. So let's surface those this coming week and try to get a plan of action done.
Is there intention to run like all the combinations of execution and client and consensus layer clients on a testnet, or this is like just one combo from each team?
The goal would be to run all combinations. All stable combinations, I believe, are run on the Amphora and Pythos testnets, and with the automation tooling that Perry, Proto, and others have been working on, it is not too insane to do those, to make sure all the combinations are represented.
Okay, and this automation tooling was mainly done not by client teams.
Correct. I believe in Perry you can fill in the gaps here. I believe build instructions and Docker images were shared and inserted. Perry, is there anything else that was critical in getting that done?
No, I don't think so. But if you're having any issues, feel free to text me on Telegram or Discord and I can help out.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. Okay, anything else related to Kintsugi? Great. Let me find my issue. Okay, we can generally move on. If you're part of the execution layer, by all means, stay and join us. But if you want to go, go. Next up, we have other client updates. If there's anything, research spec, etc. And actually, we'll do a point in between those two, which would be discussion of Pyrmont, and then open discussion and closing remarks. First of all, other client updates, anything that people would like to share in addition to the Kintsugi?
We're doing a fair bit of work on the key management API. We're hoping to try and get the current version of that built as a more than a proof of concept, but can't really call it production until the API is fully settled. So I think that's happening in a few clients, which is promising, and hopefully we can start getting some stuff up around that.
Great. And there was a request to make a separate repo. And I guess the potential counter would be to put it in the Beacon APIs, even though that's not super semantically sound. Are there strong feelings on separate repo versus Beacon APIs? James, I see you unmuted, but I can't hear you if you're talking.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't think there's any like strong feelings to move it outside or keep it inside. That's why I ended up reaching out to you. I didn't know if anyone from like the foundation side could give any direction on that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's a matter of where people want things to live. Beacon APIs kind of implies that it's the things you're getting from the Beacon, although we could have a totally separate directory and make it very clear in the README that there's also these things that you can get from the validator client. And but I'm also, especially now that I'm a bit more caught up and see that this is very much a multi-client effort. I'm totally fine with making it a repo as well.
I think the only argument for keeping it there was that not all the clients have separate entities called like the validator piece of it, right? So
even then, I mean, it's definitely a different kind of, you can logically think about it as a different module, regardless of ultimately if it's a different piece of software or not.
Yep, I'm okay either way.
I think that there was the slightly leaning in direction of new repo, new API. Does anybody feel strongly opposed to that or voice an argument in the other direction?
I mean, this is the same discussion that many teams have with going mono repo or not. I think at the end, it's more of an organization thing. So if you want to group issues and you want to have support in the same place, also with CI, if it's similar. So the discussion would lay down more on that, on how you guys want to organize and how many repos do you want to maintain, and if that's an issue.
I'm also kind of going off the fact that execution APIs are a different repo. Obviously, they're even more carved out in a different place, but I'm personally not going to spend a lot of time maintaining this. So I would love for somebody else to have a strong opinion on it. Okay.
I think we can break it out then.
Let's give that a shot. Okay, I can put in a request to make a new repo and get some permission shared and try to get this moving.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Other client updates?
I guess that's the
one
first.
more thing. Go ahead.
You go.
Okay,
I was just going to say
guess
this is the first Altair fork. Sorry, the first call after the RZF fork. And yeah, I think it went well for everyone. We were quite happy with our release and how things were running, and we're now back into our normal release cycle. Expect another release in the next few weeks, I guess. We've been also chatting with Flashbots about how their system might work post-merge, making some good progress actually on that front. Paul's put together a really, really thoughtful document that I'm sure he'll be sharing with you all shortly. I know Michael's been working on a bunch of slasher database optimizations, including some deduplication of attestations, resulting in some great data disk usage saving. I'm sure he'll share that with you all as well. And the only thing I guess we should probably just discuss is allowing client teams to exit from Pyrmont to save server fees and maintenance labor. So I think we're on board. I'm not sure if that's been already acted, but or something to discuss. But yeah, we're keen.
Yeah, we'll pick that up right after the client updates.
Yep, I can go next. So from our end, lots of optimizations on our beacon day tree structure. So Nishan has been doing great work on that. And we have been participating in lots of standardizations on the beacon validator key API. So really happy to see effort on that front. And I have started looking more into the for choice fixes, in particular the proposal boost. So I've been started refactoring our put array for choice implementation to make it more modularized and testable. And I guess I do want to ask later what timeline that we're looking at in terms of, I understand that this could happen asynchronously. We can roll this up to mainnet. But I do want to know like what months are people looking at so that I can prepare or budget more work to it. But we can talk more on that later.
Yeah, let's pick that up right after this too. All right, anything else? Any other updates people want to share?
So at Grenadina, apart from the merge progress, we are working on detailed Altair rewards, and so that maybe would be interesting to see for others. So that's all.
Thank you.
Lodestar, we are connecting with the Polter network folks to figure out how to decentralize the networking on the right client. And yeah, it's looking good. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Okay, let's talk about Pyrmont. We decided to kill Pyrmont. We decided that a long time ago. And Prouder is now near about the size of mainnet and a plan to continue to grow it. Given that we've already made a decision on this, I think that we can, if we are all still happy with that, kill it. I mean, obviously you can't kill a testnet fully, but you can just turn things off and see what happens. There are two potential things we could do with it. One would be to kill it in a bit more interesting way, you know, maybe turn off half of all the nodes and validators and observe just to see. Another thing that we can do is save it for the merge, for a merge test. But we do have the capabilities to spin up very large test nets without too much problem. And so we can happily kill Pyrmont and then in January spin up a test net very easily to do a merge test. Given that we do have a number of these proof of work and clique test nets, I think for any of those that we want to continue forward, what we would do is create a beacon chain testnet analog against that one, and then do a merge. And for those, they don't need to be nearly as many nodes or many validators as Prouder. So for example, we could just do like 100 validators and one node per team. and that ends up looking more like a proof of authority net, and then do a merge and say like merge Robson or something. Although I think they're trying to kill Robson. So even with the merge testing and merge testnets coming, we don't need Pyrmont. And in fact, we already have a beacon chain in relation to Goerli, which is Prater, and so we definitely don't need Pyrmont. Shall we kill Pyrmont?
Is it known how much of nodes are outside of the client teams? I mean, maybe there is value in the network as there are a lot of some random nodes there.
I don't know the node count, but I believe client teams control something like 70% of validators on Pyrmont. Does anybody have a better estimate on that?
Yeah, but the client teams mostly run a lot of validators per node, and I don't know, maybe community is engaged enough to participate in these, in these testnets, and maybe we have like thousands of random guys running one validator.
Yeah, exactly. We have made it clear that Pyrmont is to be killed and Prater was to succeed it, and I believe that one of the biggest operators that was still using Pyrmont was Rocket Pool, doing a beta until about a month or two ago, and that was one of the things we were still waiting on. Considering that there is Prater, and considering that we did do the diligence to make sure that the people that really needed it got what they needed out of it, I think that we can move on and kill it.
We'll give them another head.
Yeah. And I can, in a blog post Monday or Tuesday, just a roundup of the various things going on, I will mention that it is no longer supported and that Prater exists. I think it's been mentioned before, but I will reiterate again. Okay. Is there any... I suppose even if we don't want, if we want to do, turn off half nodes or something, we can actually just do that on the EF side. So if anyone is interested in doing that, we can, but maybe follow up with me and Perry. Otherwise, let it burn. Anything else on Pyrmont?
I mean, turning off half is fun.
Great.
That gives...
Perry, you want to turn off half our nodes and see what happens? What percentage of nodes, validators does the EF operate?
I think we're running 30%, if I'm not wrong.
So maybe we'll just leave the EF running longer than others by a couple of weeks. We
can, but just to add on, we did the non-finality tests on Pyrmont already. We turned off, I think, 3/4 the network or something, and then brought it back up, and Pyrmont recovered. So at this point, it's already done those tests.
Right. I forgot. Okay.
We'll just exit our validators if that's okay.
Get ready for a long exit queue. Okay, then I don't, given that, I don't see much value in even doing a non-finality test. But if anyone is inspired and has 10% of the network and wants to just run it into oblivion and become the new king of Pyrmont, then by all means.
I feel like Michael would want to do that.
Okay, we're moving on. The next item that was brought up was the fork choice attacks and or vulnerabilities, thus potential attacks, and related fixes. I did blog about this the other day to just provide some high-level context, and I will share that context here. These are serious attacks, and the proposer boosting fix in particular has been formally analyzed by a team at Stanford with rigorous liveness proofs and analysis of given the proposer boost, what an attacker and of what various sizes can do. And that formal analysis will come out hopefully very soon. But our understanding is that given the simplicity of the proposer boosting fix and the formal analysis available with it, that is the best thing to do, especially prior to the merge. So that PR has been spec since April. Teku, I think, has even implemented it behind a feature flag. And our understanding now is essentially that is the best thing to merge and get implemented prior to the merge. Merge and get implemented prior to the merge. That's funny. So given that, I believe that we'll do a final pass on that PR, make sure that there are test vectors released, and get it out by the end of this month for an inclusion in clients as soon as possible, with the latest inclusion date being the merge fork. Any questions or thoughts on this one? And as Terrence noted, this provides better liveness and rear resilience in some of these edge and attack scenarios. The core of the fork choice is the same, and when you don't have attacks, you literally agree with the old fork choice and the new. And when you do, the more that are on this new fork choice, the better resilience you have against this. So with respect to a mainnet release plan, once we do have implementations and once people have put this on test nets, then I would say starting February, people should just begin to roll it out. But we can touch base at the beginning of January, make sure there's no standing questions with respect to implementation and test vectors and things. Okay. Moving on. Any discussions related to or research updates, spec discussions, or anything else?
Well, maybe briefly. So this is mostly actually relevant for the execution side, but I was thinking maybe to briefly ask you as well. There's been some thoughts around how to handle like missed slots on the execution side from a base fee point of view, so very much execution logic. But why this could be relevant here is just that there's a EIP that's been proposed that could be included as part of the merge already to make some small changes there. And one of the motivations for it would be that it could actually reduce the impact of individual validators going offline. And specifically, there were some people that were concerned that basically with de-anonymization of validators, they could become targets of targeted DOS attacks just around the time they were kind of like would be their turn to produce blocks, and could be taken offline, and so the kind of like doing this change, including this change, could kind of reduce the incentive there. And so my question would just be, just in case any like ETH2 client team has any thoughts around like how big of a problem targeted like de-anonymization and DOS attacks could be expected to be, that could be helpful to inform whether this is high priority enough to consider for the merge itself or not. To me, it always was a bit more of like a theoretical concern, but if any team happens to have like some further thoughts on this, that could be helpful. Otherwise, I would just assume that client teams also consider this more of a theoretical concern.
I wouldn't call it a fully theoretical concern. I think that targeted DOS is definitely a problem, and that there's probably a wide range of anti-DOS capability depending on the operator, depending on the hobbyist, depending on the home or cloud infrastructure. and thus I think DOSing the entire network is probably not realistic, but maybe DOSing a somewhat significant percentages. And so still having EVM capacity, full EVM capacity in that event, I think is really valuable. I think that there's also just the chance of a 10% node operator being offline for any number of reasons is probably high over some period of time. And so it's also nice to have in that EVM capacity wouldn't go down in that event. That's my opinion. Yeah, maybe we'll discuss a bit more on Friday, but I think it's a really nice to have. I do think that it provides additional security resilience. I do think that if it doesn't go in, that Ethereum's probably fine.
Yeah, I think I generally agree with that assessment. I was just wondering, could have been that like was one client team or something had spent some time thinking about this specifically or something. But okay.
Ansgar, do you mind linking the IP, please?
Oh yeah, sure. The IP, of course, is focused very much on the execution side, but it does list the DOS concerns and the motivation. So I linked it in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ansgar. Other discussion points for today?
Yeah, just wanted to ask if anybody want to discuss the fork choice updated and prepare payload and the unification of the two, because it's been like a question of a couple of last days. Okay, nobody wants to.
You'll probably get more engagement if you just assert what you're going to do if no one's pipes up.
There is a. I think we'll do nothing.
Right. It's been already done, but the question's why it was done. Horizon.
Okay. If we do have further conversation, we'll take that to the merge interop channel on Discord. Anything else for today? Okay. Down with Pyrmont. Long live Kintsugi. Talk to y'all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Long live
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.